All right. Hi, folks. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to give late arrivers just another couple of minutes to join in the Zoom meeting for our first webinar. And we'll probably start here at about 7:05. So just sit tight for just a couple minutes and then we'll get going. Okay, folks, again, if you're just joining us, we're going to give any late arrivers about another minute or so, and we'll plan on starting our first webinar at 7:05. So just hold tight for just another minute or so. Okay, the time has come. It's 7:05. We're going to go ahead and get started. If you'll just bear with me 1 second, I'm going to get my screen share set up. Okay, thank you. Hoping everybody can see my screen. And I want to just thank you all for taking time to attend this community webinar about the proposed purchase of Broadway Middle School by the Sunset Empire Park and Recreation District. As a reminder, not sure what happened, but I wasn't able to advance my slide. Hang on 1 second. This is the first of 3 webinars on the project financing plan. We'll have 2 additional webinars on December 10th and December 17th. And this is designed to share information that the district staff and board have been working on in regards to this possibility of purchasing Broadway Middle School for community use. All webinars will be held at 7 p.m. On those Thursdays beginning tonight and viewable afterwards on the SEPRD YouTube page. We should have them up and uploaded as early as potentially tomorrow or early next week for those that couldn't make it tonight, or if you want to go back and view it again. We are interested in hearing your feedback and questions, and you can get that to us a number of different ways. If you have questions about the specific content you may hear tonight, or questions about the financing, you can email the email address you see below, which is info@sunsetempire.com. And as time permits tonight, we will be trying to answer some of the appropriate questions that we have with the experts that are here to share information. Our speakers for tonight, we have two great speakers, both representing different sides of the proposed financing. We have David Ulbrick from Special Districts Association of Oregon, and he's the Director of Advisory Services. And I'll share a little bit of information about David. He's a leading expert in special district finance with 30 years of experience with advising, structuring, and underwriting the full spectrum of municipal finance issues for school districts, cities, counties, special districts, healthcare, affordable housing, port districts, nonprofits, and industrial development revenue bonds, refunding bonds, hydroelectric, and code generation facilities across the Western United States. Additionally, David has extensive experience working with local governments on USDA-funded water, wastewater, and community facilities projects. A significant portion of David's experience has been working with special districts. He's a frequent speaker on municipal finance issues at various conferences, including the International Association of Fire Chiefs Conference, Special Districts Association of Oregon, Oregon Fire Chiefs Conference, Washington State Association of Fire Chiefs, Idaho Fire Chiefs Association, Oregon Government Finance Officers Association, Oregon Public Ports Association, Oregon Water Resource Congress, and the Great Open Spaces City Management Association. In 2013, at International Association of Fire Chiefs Annual Fire Rescue Conference, David was a recipient of the Western Fire Chiefs Association Award of Excellence for his support and commitment to serving the financial needs of the fire service. David earned his BS in finance from Oregon State University. Our second speaker for tonight will be Marcus Runkle. And Marcus Runkle is the Finance and Operations Manager at Sunset Empire Park and Recreation District. Marcus has extensive experience in finance and operations on local, national, and international levels. Prior to joining SEPRD, Marcus worked as the Global Director of Fundraising, Advocacy, and Communication overseeing offices in Ghana, Italy, France, Spain, Switzerland, Germany, and the United States. He was the interim director of operations for a regional-based nonprofit in Central Michigan, overseeing the expansion and development of a community center, and director of marketing and fund development for a regional humane society. Marcus was raised in Central Michigan before relocating to Seaside in 2015 to take a job at Foster Club, a national nonprofit based in Seaside, promoting to the role of finance manager. Prior to joining SEPRD in 2019, Marcus worked as the operations manager for a local real estate company with a portfolio of over 25 million in assets. So we'll first hear from David and then from Marcus, and then as time permits and the opportunity is there, we'll have questions at the end, again through the email address info@sunsetempire.com. So we'll turn some time now over to David Ulbrick.
Thank you, Skylar, for that wonderful introduction. Can't believe I've been around in the finance world that long. Holy cow. Anyway, and to the board, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be with you folks tonight to discuss kind of the framework of the financing of this project next door to your wonderful facilities as they sit. We've discussed various financing options and structures, and maybe I should give a little bit more background of myself. In that regard, I've been with SDA now, just going on 6 years, heading up their advisory services group. And what we do in that area is that we specialize in, advising members of SDAO on their financing needs. We sit on your side of the table during the financing process. We're here to guide you through that financing process. And we're also here to represent you and your best interest first and foremost amongst the interests of anybody else. And so that means we're your advocate when we're looking at financing alternatives and sources to, finance capital needs and improvements, and then also refinancing of projects. So in that regard, what we do is typically, we're prohibited by the rules and regulations promulgated by the Dodd-Frank Act from providing financing. So we're not a funding source. But what we do is we go out and we seek financing sources for you and your projects, or whatever special district may have a financing need. That could be, a financing need of $50,000 all the way up to, $50 million for various projects. And we, have relationships with all kinds of financial institutions across the country. We work with bond underwriting firms. And so, we advocate, seeking out the most effective form of financing and efficient financing when special districts have a financing need. So that's essentially our role, is to help you through this process. Most folks, aren't active in the municipal finance world. There's been a lot of changes in the rules and regulations associated with municipal finance that came out from the Dodd-Frank Act, from the financial crisis. So working within that framework, local governments, particularly in the state of Oregon, can essentially, they have to follow the rules by statute that's written down. So it's not like, folks in the private sector, can go out and do all kinds of different things and a little more flexibility. Local governments are restricted by what their authorizations given to them by law. In that regard, you have, pursuant to statute, there's various ways and forms that, particularly in your case of a park and rec district, can finance projects. One is to go to the voters, put on a ballot, a bond measure election to raise capital for their projects. And then the resources that you get, if the voters approve the issuance of a bond, is that you have the ability to levy a property tax without regard as to rate or amount to repay that bond, pay the debt service on that bond when it's issued. There are also other forms of financing permitted under statute, and one that is most frequently used by most, if not all, local governments at some point in time in the state of Oregon is what we call the lease purchase of real property by public body, or financing agreements permitted under Oregon Revised Statute 271-390. Now that statute, that section of the statute allows, special districts to finance essential service projects and needs to meet the needs of their community. So in a case of, say, a fire district, it would be like an installment contract if a fire district needs to buy a new piece of apparatus. So there's provisions in statute that you must follow in order to finance your project. And one in particular that we're looking at now is the use of ORS 271-390 to finance the acquisition of this project. Generally, well, all the time there's legal counsel involved that are there to make sure the financing is legal, valid, and binding and according to law, and then also federal tax law, if you're able to do the financing tax exempt under the federal tax code. So there's a lot of checks and balances that go along with doing financings. And again, everything is prescribed by law. You can't go outside, what's written down for your statute for any local government in the state. So I guess now, Skylar, if there's any questions that folks might have about, you know, the financing mechanism or how the process is that we would go out and get the financing, I'm happy to address those right now.
Yeah, we don't have any questions right now, David. I haven't gotten any to the email address shared to me. So, but maybe we can circle back around at the end of the presentations if there has been any that come in. So go ahead and proceed.
Okay,
What,
so
what is that email address?
The email address is info@sunsetempire.com.
Thank you.
so Skylar, just to kind of go on, and but like I said, this form or mechanism of financing is not many local governments in this state, special districts, cities, counties, school districts even, utilize this form of financing to meet their capital needs. And, you know, there are a number of park and recreation districts that I work with that use this exact form of financing to acquire real property, to, you know, acquire, you know, various kinds of things, to vehicles, to, you know, constructing a new facility of some sort. And really your district itself has utilized this form of financing before, you know, to make the improvements that you've made within your district and your facilities. In matter of fact, I believe your district just has paid off its financings that it had outstanding. So, you know, that helps with your capacity and you're trying to, you know, acquire this asset. Another park and rec district that I work with for a very, very long time is Chehalis Park and Rec District. They're,
That was before.
if you're familiar with their, if any of you are golfers at all, and you played Chehalis Glen, that is an asset that was financed by that park district to put a wonderful 18-hole municipal golf course that was very successful. So, you know, Boardman Park and Rec, they have a wonderful new facility out there. They've utilized financings like this. You know, Ben Metro's used financings like this. 12th and Hills Park and Rec have used financings of this nature. So it's not unusual, but quite, you know, quite common when addressing the capital needs of a local government in this state.
Okay. Thank you, David. That's great information to have, and we appreciate it. Do you have anything else to share?
I will certainly hang around if questions come up. So I will be here for the duration of the meeting, and we will, looks like someone may have a hand up, but I think she may be on mute.
I'm wondering, Skylar, as you're the host, can you mute whoever is making noise in the background? Because it's a little difficult to hear David.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that. So thank you. And folks, if you don't mind muting yourself, that would be helpful. But I think just about everybody's muted. Hang on, I'll work on that real quick. Okay. I think everybody has been muted. Thanks again, David, for that information. We'll now have an opportunity to hear from Marcus, who's already been introduced. So let me just pull up his slides and we'll go from there. All right, Marcus, please proceed. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Skylar. Thank you to the board, and thank you, David, for leading us off here. We're just going to start with like what David said. The district has used this financing in the past, and on multiple occasions has used these financing. Let's see. So the districts use this to purchase the Able House and the property, which is the current location of the Seaside Public Library. And my understanding is they held that for some time before they did sell that to the city, so that the city could build the library there. In addition, they have the one that David said that we more recently have paid off was the expansion of the natatorium, which included the spa, learner pool, and some work in the lobby, which were extensive ones. And we had a 20-year loan out for that. So I wanted to give some insight as to the process for our budget. Just to make sure that we're clear that, you know, it does go through some extensive community input, as well as that it's not just one person that makes final say. So the first step in this is that the staff prepare the budget. Skylar, do you want to click next? Sorry. Yeah, so staff prepare the budget. The budget committee is formed. The budget committee is compiled of 5 citizens as well as the 5 board members. The 5 board members are not acting as board members when they are on the budget committee. They are the same level rank as the citizens. And so it is a 10-person budget committee. Then the budget committee meets to review and discuss about the budget, and the budget committee typically meets in April and May. And the first one, they discuss and are presented the budget. Oftentimes there's not a ton of conversation that is had at that one because they are just presented the budget. In May, the budget committee meets and discusses the budget, going over any concerns that are had. They voice their concerns and come to a consensus approving the budget, hopefully at that meeting, so that the board, which is the next one, the board then meets after the approval of and adopted by the budget committee. The board meets and then approves and adopts the budget. The board does have authority to make alterations outside of the budget committee, but those alterations are typically minimal, if any. So as we're all aware, the budget was this year was presented in May or April and May to the budget committee and then adopted in June, which meant that we were working on this through COVID. To the best of our ability, we took the stance of trying to predict the length of COVID. I don't think any of us could have predicted it was going to last as long as it has. With that, we oftentimes the impact of COVID is asked. So we're in the business of serving the community. While it has given us great grief to have some of our programs shut down, we actually retain more revenue while this happens. Many people ask, like, how is that possible? How can that happen if you're closed? How do you retain revenue? Because most of our programs we subsidize. We subsidize them with the tax dollars that we receive, and the tax dollars are what we like to call our mission money. It goes towards our mission. And programs typically at maximum will only bring in 70% of the cost that it costs to run them. So while our programs are not running, we conserve money. And while COVID is a huge concern for us, the community, the district financially is not strained, and it doesn't leave us, and it actually leaves us in a favorable condition based on the fact that we are not, based on the fact that we have conserved money during the shutdown. And we had to make those very hard choices at the beginning, which we made to be the best stewards of public funds. So on your screen right now, you'll see part of our budget. And so this snapshot is to show that, like David said, we've been paying on the learner pool, the lobby, that expansion there in the natatorium for 20 years, and have consecutively been paying upwards of $100,000 every year. That was paid off. So for 2021, we did not, or 20/2021, we did not have a payment. However, the district did take the stance of investing heavily in our infrastructure. And so we had a lot of software that was outdated. We had a lot of technological advancement that we had to make in order to continue to maintain functioning. And so we took this opportunity to invest in our infrastructure, and that's about an $80,000 investment. But while we also were doing that, we have been tucking away money into our building replacement fund. It's not really the best name for that necessarily, but that building replacement fund is for opportunities in the district. It's for the district to be able to afford opportunities such as Broadway Middle School acquisition, such as expanding anything or any big capital improvement that might be needed. So as you can see, we've been tucking away 15,000, 10,000, and in this year we actually tucked away 150,000, and it's just based off of we have to have a balanced budget. That $150,000 was because of reduced expenses in program areas due to our expectation of COVID. That extra money came in because of the no longer needing to pay for the flex lease, being as it was paid off the prior year. And so as of right now, we're just a little bit shy of $250,000 in that fund. So that is a big progression. The other part that is often overlooked is that the district previously has had to take loans each year to sustain itself between the end of the fiscal year and till tax dollars start to come in or are distributed by the county. In the past couple of years, the district has made multiple shifts in order to get out of having to take those loans. So that allows us to be flush and more sustainable. We're not paying interest on that money. We're not having to distribute more out than we're actually getting at that point for sustainability. So we've made huge progress in the overall sustainability of the district with that. So the next slide will actually talk about, so once all that stuff was factored in, we look at the budget committee. So like I said, the budget committee is 5 board members and 5 community citizens, and they're on here right now. And so these individuals are the ones that passed our budget this year and kind of set the tone for allowing us to have some of this flexibility to actually look at Broadway Middle School financially. We are definitely in a good situation thanks to these people. So we're going to talk a little bit about the district tax revenue. So SEPRD has had the same permanent tax rate since it was approved in 1968. And actually, the district, the state of Oregon has 47 park districts. SEPRD is number 13 out of 47 in total assessed value, number 7 out of 47 in total permanent authority imposed, number 7 of 47 in permanent tax rate. 6 park districts currently have local option tax rates, and 7 park districts have bonds currently. So when you look at that, yeah, you can click that next button. Sorry, Skylar. When you factor in the permanent tax rate, bonds, local options, SEPRD is number 11 out of 47 in total tax rate levied by the district or by districts. And then this doesn't account for the 240 plus cities in the state, which mostly allocate city resources, which are taxes, for parks and recreation programs and services. Those cities include Portland, Eugene, Gresham, Hillsborough, Medford, Corvallis, Tigard, Astoria. They all are using their city tax money to pay for these services. And before we continue on this slide, the other part that in regards to our overall well-being of the district is that during COVID, which has been a huge financial burden, I think, on, and just burden in general on the country, right, and on the world. And so during this, and when we made those hard decisions, we actively also sought grants and federal funding reimbursements, and we have been awarded quite a bit in those. So those offset the expenses associated with COVID, and those funds allowed it so that we were able to, as of more recently, we were one of 3 pools that were only open. You know, we were like, as of today, I think there was only 1 or 2 pools in the entire state that are open today, and we were one of those. We also continued our Meals on Wheels program during this time period. We provided emergency childcare, expanding past what we traditionally would do into infant care, and that speaks volumes to our staff and to Shelley Owens as the youth programs manager. And so these resources that we've sought are to meet a community need, because that is, like I previously said, we're in the business to serve the community and what the need of the community is. And in looking at that, you know, we've talked extensively about, if you hit next, Skylar, you know, increased programming availability. So that allows more recreation and youth programs. That allows those programs to offer more. Like youth programs has been brought up multiple times at previous board meetings as being recognized because we are in a childcare desert. That means that, you know, I believe it's for every 1 slot, there's 3 people or 3 children waiting for that slot. So expanded space means expanded opportunities for our community. And that means more of our mission money. Our mission money will go farther because we're using our resources to help more people. And so in addition to that, we know that there is a obesity pandemic or epidemic in this country. We know that we also live in a place that rains a lot. And so because of inclement weather, we need additional recreation space and indoor space, not just for our youth, for our seniors, for just everybody, before work, after work. The current problem is we don't have enough space. And so that increased space allows for increased usage. The increased usage will in turn result in additional funds being brought forth. The other things that we have looked at is, and our board has actively looked at, is, you know, system development fees. I've done a little bit of research on that recently, trying to figure out what that really means, but it's because we offer more, we can ask developers to offset some of that cost. The other thing we can look at grants. Like I said, we have been actively looking at grants and fundraising campaigns. So we've been active in that, and we've been pretty successful in that. Been awarded FEMA grants, been awarded coronavirus relief grants, emergency childcare grants. So those additional funding sources will help offset the expenses associated with a larger square footage and blueprint or footprint. Then it's been brought up multiple times, sports tourism, not just PBL, which is an awesome partner to have. And it brings in a ton to this community, but there's other opportunities beyond PBL. If you take that model and amplify it for other sports, such as, you know, soccer or pickleball, or there's all these other opportunities because we'd have additional indoor recreation space. The last part of this is community space and rental space, gym space. That space is oftentimes the Bob Chisholm Community Center is booked beyond capacity, and the need for it is huge. We have people that want to have birthday parties, that want to have weddings, that want to have just a gathering space. Obviously, COVID allowing and the size allowing, but meeting this need has been brought up multiple times. This would allow us to offset some of the income or offset some of the expenses by using the income. not to mention the gym rental from pickleball or from people wanting it for traveling sports teams or wanting it for just a family get together. They could rent it and we could have that additional income as well. So in this list is not to say that it's a comprehensive list at all. This list is just a general list because the stance that conversations I've had with management and with the board is that, you know, it really is a three-phase approach, and that's to look at and research everything. And the second part is to come up with a plan. And that plan, you know, could be any of these. And then the last part is to implement that plan. And so as we actively go through this process, I have no doubt in the leadership of our board of directors or in our executive director to be looking at all this. And I know that they've done extensive research. That's why they brought David in, for instance, as an expert in that field. And they have gone above and beyond to look at all the income generation that could happen, as well as the expenses associated with such a building. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcus. Sorry, that was a more abrupt ending than I was hoping for, but I appreciate what you shared, and I know those that are on the call are going to view this later on our webinar also appreciate it. So we have received a few questions, and I kind of want to sort through those a little bit. So if you can give me just a few moments as I kind of look at my other monitor and look at what we can answer. One individual asked about, can we place a number on how much income that new programs might be able to generate? I know that we worked on a business plan that was shared with the SEPRD board about a year ago, or a little bit more than a year ago now, and that had some income generation projections. But a lot of those were just basically projections. We're doing our best to estimate how this facility, if it was open and operated at what we think could be at or near capacity, what would be the effects on our community, and what would be the draw for our community. And a lot of those are questions that we aren't sure of right now. And that's why I think the board, the SEPRD board, and many of them are on our call, are really committed to investing some time and resources to preparing a strategic plan for this property if this acquisition were to go through, because it's really crucial that we study this out a little bit more and make some great decisions considering the impact that this property could have on not just on the district, but on our community at large. Let's see here, another question that we got. Hang on one second, was this is for David. David, you're still there. I'm assuming I see your name. I'm assuming there are requirements that a district needs to meet prior to seek financing with help or support from special districts. What homework does the district need to do before approaching? And if there are prerequisites or a checklist for the district to meet, can you speak to how the district, SEPRD, has satisfied or is responding to those requirements to be in position to take, I guess, advantage of this financing?
Well, I don't know if there's necessarily a checklist other than what's prescribed by statute and in law, and what the district can and cannot do. If you're talking about, financial factors, that's something that we work closely with Marcus, and then we talk to, who the various financing providers might be. Those folks may have their own type of checklist to run through, and we would address those accordingly. But again, everything that the park district would do to enter into this financing first has to comply with state law. And then, the board has to take appropriate action to authorize any form of financing, whether, it's a bond or financings under 271-390. So that's the checklist. And then there's, but there's not a prescribed formulated checklist that one fits all.
Thank you. There's another question maybe, David, that you can address. You said that this financing method was used by many special districts to meet the needs of their community. Can you give an idea about how often this happens? And also, are you aware of the methods various districts use to pay off the financing? Do they use program revenue, grants, raised fees? And do districts issue higher taxes generally to pay off the financing?
Okay, so I'm happy to address that. I can't tell you an exact number of local governments that, look to and rely on this form of financing that's provided by statute. There's numerous, local governments, cities, counties, special districts, there's library districts, fire districts, school districts. It's a very common, used quite frequently for all sorts of capital needs. Again, it has to be, the use must be, essential, the use must be permitted and actually, prescribed by law. And then with regards to how most of the funding comes about to repay this form of indebtedness or financing is generally worked through, through the budget process, the financial capability. It'd be very similar to, individuals who are wanting to buy a house or a car. There's certain underwriting criteria and to look at. So that's not unusual. However, the district cannot just go out and raise taxes under this form of financing. They're limited because we have a property tax limitation. So the other way you could describe it is it's a limited tax obligation. So most folks, if not all folks, basically utilize all of legally available revenue and unrestricted revenue to repay the financing in an installment basis. There's no tax raising capability by any local government in this state unless you specifically ask the voters to raise taxes.
Thank you. One other question that came in that has to do with this. Does the financing that special districts would help provide SEPRD, would it cover or include the ability to make some of the needed repairs in the building? And I think that's an important point, just because we all can appreciate that the Broadway Middle School property has some buildings on it, or a building that is old and in need of some repairs potentially in the future. So in other words, can that financing go beyond the cost of the purchase, and is that allowed by statute?
Yes, it is. So basically, those improvements are defined as capital construction and improvements, renovations, as defined by statute. So if you, acquire the building, you have the capability to, include within that financing proceeds that can go to rehabilitation, improvements, or whatever else is needed.
Thank you. We had another question that asked, is it possible that parts of the property could be leased or even sold to other partners that could offset some of the cost, or to community partners that align with SEPRD's mission? I can take a stab at that and give David and Marcus a tiny break. So that is something that we've discussed a lot internally as we've considered the possibility of this property. And right now, the answer to that question is maybe. It's quite complicated. We are looking into that, and we realize, I think, that the property is quite large and exceeds our needs, at least for the immediate future, to program recreationally. But given that the property is quite large, maybe there is community partners or other partners that we could work with to share some of that property with. And those will be conversations that we'll be having down the road as we proceed. But great question. There's a couple other really good questions that came in. Sorry, there's been a lot. So if we don't get to yours, our plan is to review these questions as a staff, and we'll be posting answers to these questions on the district website and on our Facebook page in the coming days. As soon as we can get good answers to these questions, we'll post a Q&A as everywhere that we can. Can you touch on where the money is coming from to repay the loans? Your current budget is full. That's a great question. So I think what Marcus was alluding to as he showed our budget and demonstrated that we have had the ability over the past 20 years. Almost none of our staff that is working currently, with the exception of maybe a couple, was around when the learner pool project was enacted and when it was constructed and when we made the arrangement to borrow money for that project. But we've maintained the ability to pay off that loan successfully. And what a benefit that learner pool and spa has provided to our community. We've been able to expand our aquatic programs, serve even more people through a warm water pool. That's the home for a lot of our swim lessons, at least for the youngsters that start swimming, because it's a warmer body of water. And I think it's been a great boon for our district and for our community. Everybody that uses it really appreciates that. So just as we've been able to budget for that opportunity over the past 20 years, properly allocating resources to make the annual payment on that loan, so too would we potentially be able to make the annual payment on this property purchase if it were to go through. We know exactly what the amount will be once the financing is secure and a deal is finalized, and we'll know exactly how much we need to budget, and we can make those appropriations in plenty of time to do it. And then there's also the extra impact that added program revenue, rental revenue, grants, other revenue opportunities that Marcus touched on that we're still flushing out, to be perfectly honest, can have on paying off that loan for the purchase of the property. So great question. I'm gonna scroll through a couple more and see if I can find I think some that would be appropriate.
Hey, Skylar, this is David, just real quick.
Yeah.
You made a comment about, some of the folks may not have been around when, those original financings were put into place. And I can happily say, Michael, you and I were both there when that all those things happened. So anyway, we're familiar with the process and of course the district and all the great things that you do down there.
Thank you. Someone asked for details of the grants that SEPRD has received in the last 18 months. That would probably be a topic that we'd have to dive into a little bit more just to get you an accurate report. But I do know in regards to specifically to coronavirus relief funds, we've been able to secure some substantial grants that have helped offset the expenses of providing services during this time. And actually just today we received word that we have secured about I think a $27,000 grant from, I believe it was the Northwest Early Learning Council or Northwest Early Learning Center. I might be messing up the acronym, but that's for the emergency childcare program that we're providing currently. The grants that we've received have come from the state through the Coronavirus Relief Fund, and we've also been the recipient of some FEMA funds after a lengthy application process. We really try hard to do everything we can to maximize the opportunities to seek funding elsewhere, because we know that there are opportunities elsewhere, and we'd love to tap into those sources of revenue, and we'll continue doing that as much as we can, especially crucial during this time and with this potential property. Give me just another second, and maybe we have time for one or two more questions. Is the deal with the school contingent on SEPRD getting the actual loan? I think David could potentially answer that more succinctly than I can. So David, are you there? Did you hear that question?
Yes, I did. I know the districts are still going through a due diligence process. I did have a conversation a while ago with the district, the school district itself. They're familiar with this form of financing, and we are in the throes of working with a few financial institutions. But I think there's, along with that, there may be some other conditions that are predicated on the purchase closing. So.
Okay, thanks. Another couple of questions here we can get to quickly. Which programs would you cut to budget for this repayment going forward, given that your funds are limited and already allocated? I think that's maybe one of the misnomers that we've heard a little bit. If anything, over the past few years, we've expanded our programs. I think if you look at our program catalog, which because of COVID, we're not necessarily publishing and sending to every district resident like we used to, but we're actually doing more in terms of programming. We have more services, more programs, more aquatic programs, more youth programs, more community focused programs, more special events. I think all that is a reflection of a couple of things, but fiscal management is one of them, hardworking staff and a dedicated board that supports us, and really a strong desire by us as an agency to provide great programs and services for our community and to invite and inspire all of our community to play. That's super important to us, and that's something that we really live and breathe every day. So we don't plan on cutting programs, and to be honest, I feel like we have done a great job of showing over the past few years that we're dedicated to growing our programs, providing more services, and improving the quality of our programs. Maybe just one more question, and then we probably need to conclude. Doesn't the Broadway property include the big parking lot that borders Highway 101 or Roosevelt, and also include the building that houses the Chamber of Commerce? What will happen to these parts of the property? So that is correct. Part of the uniqueness of this property is that it does include part of the property, or the property that houses the City of Seaside Visitors Bureau and Chamber of Commerce, and also some public restrooms, and there is some public parking in those areas too. That property is managed through a lease between the school district and the City of Seaside, and that lease, as to our knowledge, will continue with new property owners, whether that be Sunset Empire Park and Recreation District or a different buyer. But we are really committed to working with our partners, the city and the school district, to find good solutions for that. And how it plays out, I'm not entirely sure, but that's one of the things that will just need some time and careful analysis to determine the best thing moving forward. Okay. Oh, hi, Sue. You're waving. Do you want to share something? All right, Sue, if you want to unmute, or I can unmute you. There you go.
I just want to somehow reach out to the community and let them understand that with the freeze being lifted by the governor, and we're Skylar, you're the only pool open in the state of Oregon. Thank you. I think that's a feather in the cap for this community. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. All right, well, I just want to thank you all for coming to our webinar tonight, and hopefully you're all staying safe. We're looking forward to 2 more of these starting next Thursday, or continuing next Thursday at 7 p.m. and then the following Thursday, December 17th at 7 p.m. Again, we'll be posting this webinar on our YouTube page. If you'd like to continue offering feedback, you're welcome to do so by emailing info@sunsetempire.com. If you'd like more information, there's lots out there on our district webpage, including how to get in touch with the board members. And you can find out more about providing feedback to them directly or coming to a board meeting. We actually have 2 board meetings this month, one next Tuesday, next Tuesday the 8th at 5:15, and then our regular board meeting will be on December 15th, the following Tuesday at 5:15. We thank you all for coming and hope you have a great night. Stay well.
Thank you.